The coat check girl thought I was drunk. I could tell by the way she looked at me, sideways, like I was wobbling. I wasn't. I was just shaking so hard that even my cufflinks clinked against each other like teeth in a blizzard. I shouldn't have been there. I know that. I wasn't on the list. I wasn't even supposed to know the event was happening. But there I was, standing at the back entrance of the Harrington Plaza Hotel, clutching a fake vendor badge, my heart rattling louder than the ice in my untouched glass of club soda. Her voice. I heard it before I saw her. Madison. Crisp, confident, calculated. Numbers are stories. If you can't tell one, you're in the wrong business, she said, and the crowd laughed. I peeked out from behind the velvet curtain that separated the kitchen corridor from the ballroom. She was dazzling. Not just beautiful, commanding. The way she moved across the stage in that silk dress, like she owned the floor. And yet, I wasn't proud. I was sick. Because 2 hours ago, I had watched her leave the house in that same dress. She kissed my cheek, said she was going to meet the girls for dinner, and told me not to wait up. But the reservation confirmation email? She forgot to delete that. It wasn't dinner. It was this. I was supposed to sit at home with takeout and Netflix and let her lie rot in peace. But I couldn't. Not this time. I needed to know who she became when she thought I wasn't watching. So I found myself slipping past the bar staff, sticking to the corners like a shadow. And then I saw it. Room 319. The brass plaque on the ballroom wall read, "Reserved, Executive Lounge, Private Use." 10 minutes earlier, I'd watched her disappear into that hallway with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, sharp suit, navy tie, clean-shaven. Not a colleague. Not the type to mingle. The type to close deals behind closed doors. The type who doesn't shake hands. He offers contracts. I followed. Not like a man. Like a dog crawling under the fence he just got shocked by. The hallway was dim, lined with mirrors that made everything feel longer, lonelier. At the end, room 319. The door was cracked. Not enough to see clearly. Just enough to hear. Her voice. Lower now. Not confident. Breathless. I didn't breathe. I shouldn't have listened. I should have turned back. But then came the laugh. His laugh. And the words. He really thinks you're working late? Then, her silence. That silence undid me. It was the kind of silence that wasn't surprised. Wasn't outraged. It was complicit. I don't remember walking away. I don't even remember how I ended up outside, leaning against a lamppost like I'd been gut punched. All I remember is the cold. And the realization that my wife, my Madison, had an entire version of her life that she'd built like a skyscraper, one I didn't even have clearance to enter. But I wasn't done. Because while room 319 broke me, what I found on her laptop the next morning made room 319 look like a warm-up. And after that, even Reddit wasn't ready for what came next. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, waiting to hear the garage door open. It finally did, at 1:52 a.m. 2 hours later than she said she'd be back. No text. No, sorry, we stayed late. Just the mechanical hum of the garage and the soft clicks of her heels on tile. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. She didn't check on me. She just tiptoed into the bathroom, flushed, brushed, lotioned her face like nothing happened, and crawled into bed with the same womanly sigh she used to give me when we were dating. Except now, it felt like a performance meant for someone else. By morning, she was gone. Early gym, like always. Only this time, she left her work laptop open on the kitchen counter. And for once, it wasn't locked. But my hands were. Shaking. For 10 full minutes, I paced the floor barefoot, staring at it like it was radioactive. Because opening that laptop, crossing that line, meant I couldn't go back. If I saw something, I couldn't unsee it. And if I didn't, I'd go insane wondering. So I sat down. The screen was on a slideshow from the gala. A looping set of photos with cheerful titles like Building Our Brand Together and 2025 Highlights. She was in half of them, standing next to people I didn't recognize, all dressed like they were auditioning for a luxury car commercial. And then, slide 47. Her. And him. The man from room 319. They were laughing, champagne in hand, her hand on his chest. Not casually. Not friendly. Intimately. Like they shared a language I'd never been taught. I clicked back to the desktop. An icon caught my eye. Photos, private. I clicked. A password prompt appeared. Of course. She wasn't that careless. But here's the part that'll haunt me forever. I typed one word. Curtis. My own name. and the folder opened. I stared at the screen, heart in my throat, not even knowing what I was hoping to find. I told myself maybe it was old photos of us. Maybe that's why the folder was named Private. But as the thumbnails loaded, my breath caught. They weren't of us. There were screenshots, hundreds, messages, DMs, pictures I didn't want to see but couldn't stop looking at. Conversations between her and Cameron T., the man from room 319. Some from months ago, some from last week, some from the very night she told me she was working late and ordered Thai food for the team. There were videos too. I won't describe them, but they were specific. Things she never once did with me. Things she told me she didn't like. Things she said weren't her style. Apparently, they were just not her style with me. And then one message. The one that gutted me. He's harmless. Sweet, but weak. I think he knows something, but I'll handle it. I always do. I must have blacked out for a minute because the next thing I remember is staring at my reflection in the black screen of the monitor, my face twisted, damp, unrecognizable. She came home an hour later, cheerful, carrying iced coffee, asked if I wanted anything from the store. I told her I was fine. And in that moment, I knew I was going to play the long game. Because she'd been pretending for months. Smiling, lying, rehearsing her lines like she was the star of a Broadway show. Now it was my turn. To smile, to wait, to plan, and eventually, to make sure she felt it. Because what I was about to do would make room 319 look like an opening act. She didn't suspect anything at first. That was the terrifying part. The ease with which she stepped right back into our life. Coffee in one hand, phone in the other, lying with the kind of confidence that only comes from practice. So I played along. I smiled more, asked about her meetings, laughed at jokes I didn't hear. I even bought flowers just because, and she gave me a look like I was a stray dog begging to be let back inside. "You're being sweet lately," she said one night, folding laundry. "I like it." I bet she did. She didn't know that while she folded my shirts, I was slowly unfolding every lie she'd told me. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I simply started observing, logging things, every inconsistency, every late night, every fake yawn, every text she swiped away when I entered the room. It became my quiet addiction. But I wasn't just watching. I was testing. One Saturday morning, I told her I was going to visit my sister in Columbus for the weekend. "Just some brother time," I said with a shrug. She barely looked up from her phone. "Tell Denise I said hi." She never asked what time I'd be back. That night, I parked my car 4 blocks from our house, walked back through the alley, and waited. At 8:46 p.m., her phone lit up in the kitchen window. I watched through the slats of the back fence. She read the message, smiled, and disappeared into the bedroom. 10 minutes later, she was gone. Just like that. Hair curled, heels on, navy dress I'd never seen before. I followed her. She didn't notice the beat-up Corolla trailing behind her Uber at a safe distance. I watched her walk into the rooftop bar at Holbrook and Vine, kissing the man I now knew as Cameron T. on the cheek, not in a way that says hello, but in a way that says, "You're the one I've been thinking about." They ordered wine. He touched her wrist. She giggled. I stayed until I saw them leave. No confrontation. No drama. Just confirmation. The next morning, I returned home before she did. She came in around 11 a.m. with coffee, croissants, and a rehearsed story about having brunch with her friend Skylar. I nodded. "You two still going to that art exhibit next weekend?" She blinked. Skylar was in Chicago for a wedding. She'd told me that earlier in the week. Caught. But she didn't know I knew she was caught. She smiled and said, "Yep, can't wait." I smiled too. That was the moment I knew I didn't need to ask for the truth. I just had to keep feeding her rope and wait for her to tie the knot herself. So I started shifting things. Quietly, I left my wedding ring in the drawer. I stopped filling up her car. I began locking my phone at night. She noticed. She started looking at me differently. Confused, curious, slightly worried. That's when she started making more effort. She cooked 3 nights in a row. She wore that perfume I told her I liked a year ago, the one she said gave her a headache. And one night, she asked me if I was happy. I looked at her for a long second, then gave the softest smile I could manage. "Yeah," I said. "I think things are finally starting to make sense." And the terrifying thing? She looked relieved, because she thought I was finally accepting the version of our life she was comfortable living. But the truth? I had just started writing the ending. One she didn't see coming. It started with an email. Not to her. Not to Cameron. To myself. From a burner account I created in a dusty library basement using their guest Wi-Fi and a cheap Chromebook I paid cash for at a pawn shop an hour outside of town. I even created a fake name, Martin Hale. Something generic enough to blend in, but clean enough to sound like he could be your dentist. I was done waiting to be hurt. Now I was going to start hurting her story instead. I didn't want revenge through chaos. I wanted clarity. Cold, clinical, undeniable clarity. And that meant building a trail. A record. Not of emotion, but of fact. So I began tracking their relationship the way you track a missing person. Discreet, digital, and quiet. I subscribed to one of those cheating partner surveillance tools. Not the illegal kind, just the ones marketed to concerned parents and suspicious employers. For a modest monthly fee, I learned more about my wife in 3 days than I had in 3 years. Her GPS? It told stories. Office, wine bar, hotel, repeat. Her screenshots? They read like a novel of betrayal. But I didn't just collect. I organized. I started compiling a document, password protected, air-gapped, stored on a flash drive I wore like a pendant under my shirt. Every message, photo, timestamp. I didn't care about the smut. I wanted the strategy. I wanted patterns. And I found them. Cameron wasn't just a fling. He was a plan. In one message, dated 2 months ago, she told him, "I'm just waiting for the timing. He's passive. He won't make a scene. Once Q4 bonuses hit, I'll figure it out." He's passive. Like I was an object in a room she was slowly redecorating. That's when I knew I had to become unpredictable. So I started changing. I stopped saying, "I love you" first. I let texts go unanswered. I went on walks that lasted 2 hours and came home humming. I smiled at my phone in front of her, then put it face down. She noticed. And suddenly, she got insecure. One night, she asked if I still found her attractive. I looked at her for a long second and said, "You've always looked better under pressure." Her face didn't move, but her hand clenched the stem of her wine glass just a little too tightly. Then, the next morning, she tried to seduce me. It wasn't passion. It was performance. Like a desperate audition for a part she assumed she already owned. I didn't stop her. I let it happen. But when it was over, I stared at the ceiling and said nothing. Just like she used to. That night, while she slept, I made my first real move. I transferred half of our savings into a private account under my name, one she didn't know existed. Months ago, I'd convinced her to give me power of attorney just in case something happened during a minor surgery I had. She signed it without looking. She thought I was the boring husband with nothing to hide. And now I was hiding everything. I started calling banks, checking property laws, quietly reviewing everything that had our names on it. What was shared, what could be protected, and what was vulnerable. She had no clue. She still smiled in the morning, still wore her red lipstick, still kissed me goodbye like she wasn't kissing the man who was quietly rearranging the locks on her entire world. But something shifted in her eyes. I caught her watching me one night while I was fixing a loose cabinet door. There was a flicker, just a twitch, of fear. Not because she knew what I was doing, but because she didn't. She was used to being in control, to reading people, to managing outcomes. Now, for the first time, she couldn't predict me. And that terrified her more than anything. Good. Because I wasn't building an explosion. I was building a collapse. I was folding towels when the call came in. That's how far gone I was. Doing housework like everything wasn't quietly crumbling beneath me. The number was unlisted. No caller ID. Normally, I wouldn't have answered. But I did. Maybe something in me wanted to be found. Or maybe it was just fate deciding it was time for me to stop thinking I was the only one being lied to. "Is this Curtis?" The voice said, calm but hesitant. My body went cold. "Speaking." I replied, heart thudding against my ribs like it was trying to escape. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "My name's Brenna. I think we should talk. It's about Cameron." That name alone could have knocked me over. I stepped into the garage, closed the door, and locked it. "I'm listening," I said, trying to keep my voice from cracking. "I'm his ex-wife," she said. "Well, not technically. Papers are filed. But you know how these things go." She told me everything. They'd been married for 7 years. No kids. From the outside, perfect. But Cameron was a man of patterns. And secrets. She'd caught him cheating twice, both times with women from his workplace. Not one-night stands. Affairs. Calculated. Deliberate. Like he enjoyed the manipulation more than the intimacy. Brenna found me by accident. Apparently, Madison had posted a photo from the rooftop bar a few weeks back. Just her drink and his watch resting on the table, barely visible. But Brenna noticed it. She still had his watch cataloged in her brain from the divorce mediation. A limited edition Breitling with a custom leather strap. Only 10 made. Her gut said it was him. So she dug. Found Madison's profile. Then mine. Followed breadcrumbs. I hesitated calling you, she said. I figured you either knew or didn't want to know. But when I saw that smile on your wife's face, the same one I wore when I didn't realize he was lying to me every single day, I couldn't let it go. We talked for an hour. I learned more about Cameron in 60 minutes than Madison probably had in 6 months. He wasn't just a cheater. He was a collector. He liked breaking women who thought they were strong. He chased complexity. Women with ambition. Status. Reputation. The higher the pedestal, the harder the fall, and the more satisfying the destruction. Has he asked her to invest anything? Brenna asked. I paused. What do you mean? That's how he works, she said. He gets them to co-sign things. Business ideas. Startups. Real estate. Then when it ends, he ghosts. Or flips it. Or moves the money. Sometimes with their signature still drying on the contract. My blood ran cold. Madison had mentioned a side project a few weeks back. Something she wasn't ready to share yet. I didn't think much of it at the time. I assumed it was a rebrand or maybe some personal coaching business. But now, it felt like a trap she didn't even realize she'd stepped into. Brenna offered to send me everything. Emails, PDFs, scans of documents with Cameron's name on them, linked to 3 different LLCs. 2 of those companies had dissolved within months. The third, still active, still listed in Madison's state. I thanked her. We hung up. Then I sat in the garage for 20 minutes staring at the floor, realizing the hole I thought Madison was digging for me might actually be under her. And strangely, that made me hesitate. Part of me still wanted to believe she was just infatuated, that she didn't know the kind of man she was climbing into bed with, that maybe, just maybe, she'd been lured, not leading. But then I remembered the folder, the messages, the things she said about me, called me soft, predictable, a phase she needed to grow out of. No, she chose this. She chose him. And now, I was choosing the ending. But I wouldn't do it alone. Because what Madison didn't know was that Brenna wasn't just angry. She was resourceful. And she had just sent me a file that changed everything. I opened the PDF on my office computer at work, the one Madison didn't have access to. No cloud sync, no backups. Just local files, password protected, buried under a folder labeled Tax Prep 2018. What Brenna sent me was a portfolio, not of photos, but of traps, contracts, loan applications, LLC filings, all bearing Cameron's full name, Cameron Thornwells, and one of them included a second signature line. Guess whose name was next to it? Madison S. Grant, not just as a consultant, as a partner. The business was called W3 Strategic Advisory, registered in Delaware just 6 weeks ago, but already tied to a holding account in New Jersey. $85,000 had moved through it in just under a month. I cross-referenced a few charges using a disposable virtual card Brenna gave me access to, and there it was, deposits linked to private consultancy packages charged to 2 of Madison's firm's clients. Clients she wasn't legally allowed to freelance for. That changed everything. This wasn't just an affair. It was fraud. And whether Madison knew it or not, she was tethered to Cameron now, not emotionally, but financially and legally. So I did what she probably would have done in my shoes. I got smart. I called a lawyer. Not one of those billboard, we win big guys. No, I went with someone quiet. A woman named Dana. Sharp, discreet, specialized in financial exposure during high-asset divorces. I booked a consultation under a fake name and paid cash. No trace. Dana listened to my story without flinching. When I handed her the flash drive, she scrolled through it without a word. Then she looked up at me and said something that caught me completely off guard. You're holding a bomb, she said. But if you're not careful, it blows you up too. What do you mean? I asked. If you expose her too early, she flips the narrative. Says you hacked her files. Says you were controlling, unstable. Turns the sympathy in her direction. That folder is leverage, not a weapon. Don't swing it. Hang it over her. That's when she gave me a plan. First, move my assets. Done. I'd already pulled our joint savings. Second, secure proof of where the W3 money was coming from, screenshots, metadata, bank routing codes. That would take a few days. Third, start recording. Not secretly, legally. In our state, one-party consent meant I could record any conversation as long as I was part of it. But the most important part? Don't change anything in front of Madison. Not yet. Not even a raised eyebrow. So I went home that night and made her pasta. She smiled like she had no idea she was about to walk barefoot across the legal equivalent of broken glass. "Did I tell you?" she said while chewing. "I might be getting a promotion soon. They've been hinting." I sipped my wine and nodded. "That's great. You deserve it." She smiled. I pressed record under the table. Later that night, when she showered, I slipped into her home office, the one she used for Zoom calls and admin work. I found a yellow legal pad on the desk with a few scribbles that made my stomach twist. W3 Strategy, Projections. CTW. Target Acquisition, Brymore Group. Phase 2, Quiet Exit Deck. She was planning to leave. Not just me, her job. Maybe her entire life here. With him. With Cameron. And she wasn't going to tell me a word until she was already on the plane. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the desk. But instead, I photographed every page, every sticky note, every careless trail of ink. Because Dana was right. I didn't need justice that night. I needed a slow fuse. And by the time I was done collecting, I had an entire fire ready to burn. But I wasn't going to light it alone. Because what happened next? It wasn't something I planned. It was something Cameron did. Something stupid. Something loud. And something I was very ready for. It happened faster than I thought it would. I always expected Cameron to be careful. He struck me as the type who played long games, like a chess player who only moved when 3 outcomes aligned. But arrogance has a way of making even the smartest man stupid. And that's exactly what happened the night of the firm's quarterly mixer. Madison left the invite on the counter. Said she wasn't going. Too tired, she claimed. Rather spend the night in sweats. We even made plans to binge some throwback crime drama and order pizza. She kissed my cheek like it was 2014. But I already knew she RSVP'd yes. I saw her name on the attendance list through the firm's internal portal. A portal I'd guessed the password to weeks ago. Hint, her high school mascot and her birth year. Not exactly Fort Knox. So when she told me she'd be in the guest bedroom on a Zoom with her career coach, I nodded, smiled, and walked out the front door at 7:14 p.m. She probably didn't even wait 5 minutes before slipping into that blue dress she kept hidden in the back of her closet under a dry cleaning bag marked, "Do not touch." What she didn't know? I'd seen her wear it before. In the mirror. In Cameron's apartment. Through his window. I took my time getting to the venue. Wore a different suit. Tighter haircut. New cologne. I didn't need to hide anymore. In fact, I wanted her to see me. But it wasn't her I found first. It was him. Cameron was by the bar, already 2 drinks in, doing that obnoxious over-the-shoulder laugh men use when they think their charm makes them taller. He was working the room like it owed him money. Women in blazers half turned toward him like planets caught in orbit. Then she walked in. Madison. Hair pinned up, lips red, phone off. She moved through the crowd like she was born in it. They locked eyes. And that's when I saw it. It wasn't love. It wasn't lust. It was possession. He reached for her wrist. Quick. Confident. Like she was something he'd bought. She didn't resist. They leaned into each other, whispering, laughing. She handed him a glass of something dark. He downed it without breaking eye contact. And then, in front of at least 20 colleagues and 2 firm partners, he did the one thing that made every bone in my body go still. He kissed her. Not a cheek kiss. Not an accidental too-close kiss. A real one. Slow. Full. And entirely public. There was a silence. A half-second delay before people pretended to be preoccupied with their drinks or suddenly needed to check their phones. But it was done. The room had seen it. So had I. And so had someone else. Because 15 feet away, Madison's manager, the same man who personally signed her ethics agreement last fall, turned, blinked once, and walked away without saying a word. She was too distracted to notice. But I did. The fall had begun. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I walked outside, pulled out my phone, and sent one email. No drama. No name-calling. Just a time-stamped photo and a single sentence. This may be relevant to your internal affairs policies. Thought you'd want to see it first. I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. By the time Madison got home that night, I was on the couch, hoodie on, same Netflix screen paused from hours earlier, half a pizza uneaten. She smelled like whiskey and his cologne. I thought you weren't going out, I said casually. She froze for just a beat too long. Skylar begged me last minute. I didn't think you'd care. I nodded slowly. You're right. I don't. She smiled, confused by how easy I let it slide. But inside, I wasn't confused. I was ready. Because tomorrow morning, that email was going to land in the inbox of a compliance officer whose job it was to clean messes like this. And Madison? She was the mess. Madison called in sick the next morning. She never does that. But when I walked past her home office, the door was closed and the silence was thick. I could hear the dull hum of her phone vibrating over and over on the desk. I knew what it was. HR, legal, her manager, and probably Cameron, too, calling to spin his way out of the mess I'd only gently, precisely, helped reveal. I didn't need to say a word. I just let the truth roll downhill. By noon, I got the alert. Her corporate email access had been revoked. An hour after that, she came out of her office looking pale. No makeup, hair undone. She held her phone like it was a ticking bomb. I think I'm being set up, she said softly. I nodded, not looking up from my laptop. Maybe you are. Or maybe someone just saw something they weren't supposed to. She stared at me, lips parting like she was about to speak. But nothing came. Because she knew. Deep down, she knew this wasn't bad luck. This was gravity. And she'd been throwing bricks in the air for months. She tried to salvage things. The next day, she cooked dinner. I didn't eat it. She left a note on my pillow, let's talk. I folded it and placed it in the trash. No yelling. No revenge speech. Just silence. It drove her crazy. And that's when she did something I never expected. She confessed. 3 days later, she asked if we could go for a walk. The same trail we used to take on Sundays, back when love felt like something soft instead of something sharp. We didn't talk for the first 20 minutes. Then she said, I don't even know why I did it. That was a lie, but I let her say it. She went on about pressure, temptation, insecurity. The usual script. I nodded through most of it, staring at the leaves crunching under my shoes. She asked if I consider marriage counseling. I told her the truth. I already filed. Her breath caught, like a punch in the ribs. I'm not angry, I added. I'm tired. I'm done being the version of me that you think doesn't notice things. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Like a woman mourning something she never thought she'd lose. A week later, I moved out. Peacefully. Legally. Everything handled through Dana, my lawyer. No drama. No chaos. Just boxes, papers, signatures. She didn't contest a thing. Maybe because part of her knew I'd kept the receipts. All of them. It's been 6 months now. I live in a smaller place with worse Wi-Fi, but better mornings. I've taken up sketching again, something I gave up back when she told me it was a hobby, not a future. Turns out, I didn't need her version of a future anyway. I met someone. Her name's Avery. She talks to dogs on the street like they're people. She laughs at my dumbest jokes. She once told me, you listen like you're solving a puzzle, and that's rare. I told her I used to be the puzzle, and someone else solved me the wrong way. She just smiled and said, well, maybe now you get to draw the picture yourself. As for Madison, last I heard, she's consulting independently. Cameron vanished, ran into legal trouble in another state. Brenna and I still exchange sarcastic emails every now and then, like survivors of the same shipwreck waving from different islands. Funny how pain can make allies of strangers. And healing? It comes slow, but it does come. Sometimes all it takes is finally opening your eyes and being brave enough to walk away without slamming the door. Because revenge feels good. But peace? Peace lasts.